trying a different format, so I've set up a camera and some screens that we're going to go over. We're going to talk about challenge rating today. Challenge rating is kind of a bit of a meme for some people, and for others it's not. Essentially what challenge rating is it's saying, hey, if a creature is CR3, then it's worth this much experience, and if it's worth so much experience, this is how difficult it would be for a party to take it on. Now, Jacob recently did a video memeing about how a Gold Dragon Wormling, who is challenge rating 3, could take out level 3 adventurers with his fire breath easily on an accident. So, we're going to go over a few things, read what challenge rating is, and I'll tell you how I would think you should use it. So I'm going to transition real quick. So this is the Creating Adventures tab of the DM's Guide over on D&D Beyond, and this is what it says for challenge rating. When putting together an encounter or adventure, especially at lower levels, exercise caution when using monsters whose challenge rating is higher than the party's average level. Such a creature might deal enough damage with a single action to take out adventurers of a lower level. For example, an ogre has a challenge rating of 2 but can kill a first level wizard with a single blow. This is fantastic advice and is completely true. Generally speaking, creatures of a higher challenge rating are going to be very, very difficult for a party to take out. Generally speaking, that's not always true. In addition, some monsters have features that might be difficult or impossible for lower level characters to overcome. For example, a Rakshasa has a challenge rating of 13 and is immune to spells of 6th level or lower. Spellcasters of 12th level and lower have no spells higher than 6th level, meaning they won't be able to affect the Rakshasa with their magic, putting the adventurers at a serious disadvantage. So, the Rakshasa is so difficult simply because of this feature is what they're trying to tell me here, I believe. The reason why I'm saying this is because we fought a Rakshasa in Evenfall at level 5 or 6, and we killed it pretty easily. But its challenge rating suggests that we should have been at least 12th level for its difficulty to be proper. And then they have a calculation here, how to evaluate encounter difficulty. So you can determine thresholds by each character in the party, and they have the threshold. This is the threshold calculation here. So if you want to do the calculations yourself, you can say I want to do a medium encounter, and if a character is level 1, then each character should only be worth 50 XP. So if you had 5 characters, you would have 250 XP to work with. So that's how they determine the XP threshold. You add the monster's XP together, and then you apply a multiple depending on how many monsters there are. So a 1.5 for 2, times 2 for 3 to 6, etc, etc, etc. You compare them, and depending on what the number is, that's how you determine if it is easy, deadly, etc. Party size obviously matters. This assumes you have a party consisting of 3 to 5 adventurers, so the multiplication changes depending on party size. But for the purposes of the example we're using, we're going to do 4 level 3 characters, and that will move us over to our encounter builder here. So right now, we have a Gold Dragon Wormling and an Archer in the list here. That, according to D&D Beyond, for 4 level 3 characters, is a deadly encounter. Now, what they say over here in Creating Adventures is that you should assume that on a typical adventuring day, they should be able to handle about 6 to 8 medium or hard encounters in a day. So given that this is deadly, let's assume that they could handle up to 3 of these deadly encounters in a day. Alright? A deadly encounter can be lethal for 1 or more players. Survival often requires good tactics and quick thinking, and the party risks defeat. That is how they describe deadly encounters in D&D Beyond. On the daily budget, they assume 6 to 8, the same way you figure out the difficulty of an encounter, you can use XP values of monsters as a guideline as how far the party is likely to progress. So again, they want you to use CR and XP as a way to assume the progression of the party. Now, here's the problem. An archer can make 2 attacks with its longbow. Alright? Or I assume 1 attack with the short sword, because it doesn't say anything about the short sword. That's a little bit of a weird a weird mess that they have there. I assume because he's an archer, he can make 1 attack with short sword or 2 with longbow. On a hit, he has a +6 to hit, and on a hit, he does 8 damage. So assuming with a +6 to hit, you will hit the party, assuming an average roll of 10 or 11, you will hit the member of the party that you're firing at once out of every 2 hits. So this is 8 damage a turn that this archer is doing. Keep that in mind. And as a bonus action, they can add 1d10 3 times a day. So assuming average roll, they are doing 8 + 6, they are doing 14 damage a turn. Assuming average rolls. With an AC of 16. The Gold Dragon Wormling, however, we'll go over here for this. The Gold Dragon Wormling has a higher armor class, slightly less HP, but it can fly and swim, and it has its breath weapon, which if you fail the DC 13 dexterity saving throw, does 22 fire damage or half as much on a successful one. 22 fire damage if you're taking average health for party members. Assuming wizard, a wizard has a d6, so you would have 6 HP. Most wizards have at max a +1 to con, so that's 7 HP, +5 +5, that's 12, and 17 HP. So a level 3 wizard taking average health, based on how D&D Beyond rules it, would have 17 HP. This fire breath either kills them outright, drops them to 0, or takes them down to 6 HP. A rogue is a d8. Most rogues, let's again assume Constitution of 1, because most rogues are going to go into Dex, maybe Charisma, maybe Intelligence as their secondary, maybe let's say a +2. Let's be kind and say a +2 for the rogue. The rogue is going to have 10 health initially, and then +7 +7, so they would have 24 HP, assuming a +2 in con, and average rolls on the d8 for their health. And if they're rolling, they might have less health. Again, this might just straight up knock the rogue down. The only classes that you would roll that this wouldn't immediately knock down the rogue are fighter, paladin, wouldn't immediately knock down the player character, are fighter, paladin, barbarian, any that has a d10 or above, as their baseline, assuming baseline stats, and you're building optimally according to how you would build a character, putting con in the right place, your con score, assume a con score of 14, maybe a con of +3 if you're using standard array and you're really going into that constitution. At that point, the most health a character can have at level 3 would be I would say probably a human variant with the tough feat. So you would have, that's a barbarian. So you would have 15 HP at level 1, +2 from tough, so 17 HP at level 1, and then plus another 14 from the D12 hit dice. So 17, so 31 HP, plus another, let's assume 3 on the con, because we did that just a moment ago. So that would be, what was it, 17 plus 14, 31, 34, 37 HP, 41 HP. So a barbarian has 41 HP and can likely survive this. However, everyone else in the party either goes down immediately or barely survives. That's a problem if your party is, say, a wizard, a cleric, a rogue, and a barbarian. Your barbarian very well might be, just because of bad dex saves, fighting this dragon by themselves on turn 1. Not to mention that the gold dragon has layer actions, including teleporting a creature to a dream zone if they fail a charisma saving throw for an entire turn. And this, according to challenge rating, is the exact same difficulty as this archer, who can do up to, who does on average 8 plus 6 from the D10, 14 damage a turn. 14 damage a turn versus, assuming 2 fail, 2 succeeds on the dex save, 22, 44, plus another 22, 66 damage on turn 1. Of course, again, this is assuming that everyone's in the cone and all of that, but in a normal D&D encounter, depending on how you play, it normally stands to reason that the players will be near each other at the start of a fight. If not all of them, then most of them. So maybe you can only hit 3 of the characters. But still, it's very likely that you down people on turn 1 with a gold dragon versus using an archer. On top of that, they can get the breath weapon back. They have their bite attack, which does 9 damage and will hit half the time, theoretically, because it's only a +6 to hit, and they only attack once. However, they can also fly. They have blind sight. So the Gold Dragon Wyrmling overall has way more tools and just a few negatives compared, only one negative, which is its HP, versus the Archer. This is why CR doesn't work in that case, in that sense of, oh, well, I'll just throw this CR3 in an encounter, and oh look, the Gold Dragon Wyrmling is a medium encounter. They should be able to take on six Gold Dragon Wyrmlings over a day. In 1 day of travel, they could theoretically fight 6 Gold Dragon Wyrmlings. So if challenge rating does that, where 6 Gold Dragon Wyrmlings is theoretically something that your party could handle, how should you use challenge rating? Well, you should use it in a way to figure out what you're willing to give your players in terms of XP and as a general guideline, but not as an end-all be-all. And the book does a pretty okay job of explaining that. So what I would suggest doing is doing something like what I did right here and assume average scenario in an encounter. If you are a party of level 3 and you have a wizard, I believe that means your wizard would have level 2 spell slots. So how much damage can your wizard do in a turn? Your wizard could theoretically, let's say they cast Snillock Snowball Swarm. I believe that does 3d6 cold damage in a small area. That could potentially be 12 damage in their first turn, assuming the dragon fails to save. That's not bad, especially when you have 3 more party members. They can probably kill the Gold Dragon Wyrmling in 3 or 4 turns, assuming average rolls. So running through that, say, okay, assuming everything goes as average, can my party kill this creature? Do the calculation if you want to, or if you feel comfortable saying, oh, well, you know, it might take someone down, but I'm confident that it won't kill them outright, or that it won't be too easy, then that's okay. But if something reads weird, make sure you don't use challenge rating as the end-all be-all. Read over the stat block of the creature you're using. Make sure if they have any spells that you at least do a once over on the spell, see how much damage they do and what their effects are, and look at it to say, you know what, that looks a little strong, maybe I should be more careful about where I use this CR3 creature, because it may be on the high end of CR3, or maybe even CR4 level, depending on how it fights. That's about all I have for that. I would just say the TLDR is use CR as a building block, but make sure that you're reading your slots, your stat blocks, your hit points. Just look over the important things: hit points, speeds, and what are its actions. Look over those 3 things, and then I believe you're good to go. Now that's the end of today's video. However, before you go, we do have a sponsor, and our sponsor today is Describe. Are you looking to jump behind the DM screen but worry about being at a loss for words? Or are you a fantasy DM with more campaign ideas than prep time? Well, Describe has you covered. Describe provides descriptive text of places, monsters, spells, and other observations, commonly referred to as box text in pre-writtens, meant to be read aloud by DMs to players. So, for example, if you've ever run a pre-written, such as Tomb of Annihilation or Curse of Strahd, all of that text that they have prepared to read, Describe has ready to go for you in your homebrew campaign. Now, Describe does not treat itself as an adventure book or encounter generator. For example, they do not introduce quests or describe importance of NPCs so that you, the dungeon master, can have that control yourself. So if you're interested in Describe and using it for your future campaigns, you can click on the link below in the description and get $7 off of your subscription and help support the channel. Thanks for watching this video, guys. I hope to see you in the next one. And that's the end of the video for real this time.